This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. So First Assistant State Attorney Joseph McGatz trotted out like a hostage to recite Kim Foxx's talking points yesterday before the assembled Chicago press corps. And look, he had a message. He understands some Chicago police officers, like all of them, investigators, detectives, upset by the decision to let Jesse Smollett walk away with a $10,000 fine effectively and a few hours of community service at Operation Push, expunging the 16 felonies with which he was charged and sealing the associated case, the reports, the police notes, and the like.
So we'll never find out what actually happened. But I think we know.
Never's a long time.
Hear from Abel and Ola, the two brothers who staged this fake attack.
McGatz, though, has a message for Chicago police. He feels your pain.
I certainly understand why they feel that way, and I get it. I would just say they did a great job and thank them for their work they do.
So that squares it.
Oh, Jesse Smollett, by the way, still, he's sticking to his story, Dan.
I've been truthful and consistent on every single level since day one. I would not be my mother's son if I was capable of one drop of what I've been accused of.
It's good enough for me. I'm going to take McGatz at his word, take Jesse Smollett as his word, and we just move on because to the extent that you were worried about Lady Justice being blind in Cook County, McGatz has you. Don't worry about it.
We are transparent. We consider all the facts and circumstances in the case before we make a decision, and we try to be completely transparent as to what we do and why we do it.
That's why the case is sealed.
There you go.
Yeah, it's so. I love this transparency. I mean, does he know what a puppet and what a dope he sounds like?
So you've addressed. Look, he's addressed Chicago police concerns. He's addressed the public's concerns. You have Jesse Smollett continuing to protest his innocence. He needs to get back to shooting Empire.
Yeah, which
so
begins today.
Everything's fine.
Yeah,
everything is right with the world. Everything has been squared away, and we just move on to the next circus. We got a mayor's election on Tuesday. It's going to be a celebration. So let's just put some of this consternation behind us and go back to being the Stockholm Syndrome afflicted populace that we are. It's so much easier.
So embarrassing.
We'll see if
Chicago.
We'll see if Kevin Graham agrees with my analysis there. He is the president of Chicago Fraternal Order of Police. He joins us now. Kevin, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So you heard Joseph McGatz say, look, he understands the Chicago police officers' frustration, the detectives' frustration, Eddie Johnson's frustration. He applauds the work you did, stands by their investigation. Jesse Smollett was not exonerated. And so it's just a difference of opinion here, and we can all just agree to be friends and go forward.
Yeah, I don't think so. They're number one. The reason we asked for an investigation last week with the federal government was because we felt that there were inappropriate text messages between a private attorney in Los Angeles and the state's attorney, Kim Foxx. That was the reason why we asked for it in the first place. Now, I hadn't heard anything from the northern, U.S. attorney, the U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, and so I made sure that he had a copy of the letter. So I hand delivered it yesterday to the federal building. We still want an investigation, and we are also hoping that the federal authorities look into the claim that Mr. Smollett had a threatening letter delivered to him, because that is a federal crime, and certainly the federal authorities can move on that. And so I think we were exactly correct last week in sending that letter and asking for an investigation. We are not just going to walk away and say, too bad, we lost one. No. These detectives worked extremely hard. There was no rock they didn't uncover. There was no lead they didn't follow up. And their work should not just be thrown away and said, oh, well, it doesn't mean anything. No, they worked hard.
Have you ever heard of this happening any other time in Cook County history? where you have this much you have a grand jury that indicted him.
No. I mean, certainly I've seen records sealed when there were juveniles involved. Mm-hmm. I've seen, court diversions when there is a case of mental illness and they need mental treatment. Yeah, but the totality of what had occurred from the state's attorney's office, I've never seen this before. Never.
Yeah, and my point on Maget's explanation for all of this, one of my points is that why not, as part of this alternative disposition, doesn't require any more resources, so $10,000 community service, okay, and also have Smollett allocute to the hoax. Why not have him tell people what he did, mandate that as part of the agreement or there's no agreement, and then at least even if you disagree with the level of punishment, it's settled and there's no dispute because you have an admission.
You certainly hit the nail on the head. I also believe that why on earth would you not let the police department know ahead of time what's going on? Why would you not? Why would you have the record sealed? I don't understand that at all.
Well, and
he got what he wanted,
and then not letting the police department know. I mean, to develop that a little bit more, because you already have, it seems to me, a police department that and tension between the Chicago Police Department and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and how important is that trust relationship between those two ostensibly collaborating agencies with respect to enforcing the rule of law, and now that tension is exacerbated.
You know what? The state's attorney and I spoke last week, and she was very unhappy with the letter that I've asked for the investigation. And I assumed that she would be keeping, if not me informed, at least the police department informed as to the progress of very high-profile and serious cases. And she decided that she was not going to do that. It was apparent to me yesterday when I spoke with the mayor and with the superintendent that they had no idea that this was coming. And, certainly we'd like to know what transpired.
Well, okay, so does it seem to you that there's two systems of justice here in Chicago, one for whites and one for African Americans? Or do you think that this is more about celebrity or more about...
I would say that certainly if you have more access to more expensive attorneys, your chances are better in court. But I disagree with basing it on the color of the skin. I would base it on how much money you have in your pocket, though.
Yeah, and what about one? When this first broke yesterday, I thought, well, maybe there was some sort of prosecutorial misconduct, or there was a concern about the way evidence was obtained, and that was going to impair the ability to get a conviction. Well, none of that is true, according to Joseph Magat. Nothing has changed. No evidence has changed. They have the same strength of case they had prior to this decision being made. That's Joseph Magat saying it, who's the attorney in charge of the case. So do you think or maybe you heard something about those high-priced attorneys Smollett has, and because of the ex parte communications between Kim Foxx and Michelle Obama's former chief of staff on behalf of the Smollett family, do you think maybe they were going to call or try to call Kim Foxx as a witness in the case, and that's something that Cook County State's Attorney's Office couldn't tolerate?
Well, sure, that there's certainly that possibility. I think that people only need to go back just a few weeks and remember that Jesse Smollett's attorney, Patricia Brown Holmes, who brokered this deal apparently, it was also the special prosecutor that wrongfully accused 3 police officers without a shred of evidence.
Yeah. Well,
this is the same person.
Oh, okay. Well, now Chicago police opened their internal investigation into alleged leaks in the Smollett case. Now, since charges against Smollett have been dropped, do you think that Chicago police internal investigation should be dropped too?
You know what? I had heard about the leaks. I think certainly you need to know whether it's a high-profile case or it's a sensitive case. We need to keep our comments to ourselves until we can resolve this. I don't think that the investigation is going to stop, I think it's going to lead where it leads. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. You can't be talking about cases with the media that are ongoing. They need to keep those things to themselves. That doesn't mean that a crime is committed, but that's an internal administrative problem.
First Assistant Joseph McGatz also explaining the decision said, look, it's a resource decision in part, and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office needs to focus on violent offenders. Jesse Smollett, not a violent offender, not a threat to be a violent offender. We need to focus on those violent offenders with our limited resources. And you at your FOP7blog.org site make the point, well, with respect to violent offenders, how about the man accused of murdering police officer John Rivera over the weekend? What about how they devoted their resources to prosecuting that violent offender?
Well, I think one of the things that has to be looked at is, should this person have been in jail? If he had been in jail for a home invasion, for domestic violence, and there was another charge in there too that I don't remember offhand. He should have, if he had been in jail, either higher bond or simply just kept in jail for what he was doing. He wouldn't have been on the street, and he wouldn't have shot and murdered Chicago police officer.
He pled out.
Who was off duty.
Right. He pled out to. He pled out to attempted burglary, and he got a sentence of probation just to close the loop on it. So to your point,
thanks.
right? And so but just the larger claim that McGatz was making, that this is not totally, but in part a resource issue, and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office is laser focused on violent offenders. Is that the experience of the Chicago police?
Well, I understand what he's saying about violent criminals, but before Kim Foxx took over, we went after shoplifters, and you'd say, well, what does that have to do with it? The problem is that when people, if you own a store and people keep coming in and stealing from you, and there's no consequence, they're going to come in and keep stealing from you. Mm-hmm. There has to be a consequence for your actions, and Mr. Smollett did not receive any consequence for his actions, or very little.
Do you think men and women of the FOP and obviously Chicago police officers are going to do their jobs any differently because the charges against Jesse Smollett were dropped? I mean, because this is a kick in the gut for everyone.
I don't think it's going to be any different, but I do think that that they feel that their work is being diminished. If you have a detective that has stayed up for 24 hours running down leads, making sure that he has to get this before the source dries up. He has gone without sleep, gone without eating to make sure that this case gets resolved in a proper way. And then to say, yeah, it didn't mean anything. We slapped him on his wrist and sent him on his way.
And he's still sticking to his story.
Not only disrespectful to the police officer, it sends a bad message to people who break the law.
What about, not that police would ever not do their job when they're on duty, but what about this thought? What about a police revolt against the civilian authorities the political authorities in this city? What about a walkout, some kind of solidarity show against the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, against Fox for what is ongoing, particularly as John Cass writes about this week, with the hot summer coming and police saying it is going to be an ugly, violent hot summer?
You know what the city of Chicago can do, and they can do this today? They can sign a contract with the Chicago police officers that they've been without a contract for a year and a half, and on July 1st, it'll be 2 years, okay, that they've gone without a raise and without a contract. The city of Chicago can do that tomorrow. They have our proposals, and they have chosen to drag it out. I think that there should be a commitment from whoever the next mayor is that they get this contract done before we have 2 years go by.
Okay. He is Kevin Graham. He's the president of the Chicago FOP. Kevin, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Bye.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy.